everyone. I'm here for our weekly conversation with Dr. Nario. Thanks for being with us, Doctor.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for having me again. Always a pleasure.
All right, so we're going to talk about Parkinson's. But first, as you know, Dr. Nario is with Biointegrative Health Center in Reno, Nevada. You can easily check them out online and see what they treat and all the different things that they do there if you're interested learning more about Dr. Nario and what he does there. So, Parkinson's, what is it? Tell me what it is first.
Well, Steve, we always think about a specific actor. I don't know if this is in your era, but the actor always comes into my mind when I hear Parkinson's is Michael J. Fox. So Michael J. Fox is the Back to the Future star, and now he is actually having this slow onset Parkinson's, and you can see he's still moving, he's still alive, but he's a perfect example for the ones who doesn't know what Parkinson's is. But let me give you a brief overview on what that disease condition is. It's actually a progressive neurodegenerative disorder that primarily affects the movements. It is characterized by combining motor, meaning movement symptoms, and additionally can cause also non-motor symptoms, including brain function impairment, mood changes, even autonomic dysfunction, as we call it, meaning funky ways in how we respond to stress, for example. And second, actually, the second most common neurodegenerative disease out there after Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's still taking the number one seat here. Its prevalence increases with age. It is more common in older adults, over 60 years old, more common in men than women. And the hallmark feature of Parkinson's is the loss of what we call dopamine producing neurons in the brain. And they are called what we call the substantia nigra. So that's part of your brain. It's black. That's why it's called the substantia nigra or nigra. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that plays a crucial role in regulating movement and coordination. As dopamine levels decrease, it leads to motor symptoms associated with Parkinson's. So that's kind of like a nutshell explanation of the disease concept.
So, you mentioned Michael J. Fox. This hit him at a very young age, and he's been
Right,
dealing with it for, I don't know, 20, 30 years at
right.
least. But what do we know what causes this? Because he is one that's been kind of leading the charge against how to treat this and how to deal with it because of his he's famous, so and does this hit people? Is there a certain age that it hits more than others? Because I know it hit him young, but what causes it? In what ages is this common to attack someone?
Right. Well, Steve, with Michael J. Fox, so one of the common causes that I will probably elaborate is genetic. So the genetic mutations actually alters the normal cellular processes in the brain, leading to the generation of these dopamine producing neurons. And this is one thing that probably is one that is correlated to his condition because it's such a young age and how it manifested for him. So, which is not common. So, as I mentioned to you, it's more common with 60-year-olds and above. And later on, I'm going to tell you a little bit more why that age group is more prone. But another reason is environmental exposure. Exposure to certain environmental toxins and pollutants may increase the risk of this disease, such as pesticides, herbicides, and other agricultural chemicals have been implicated as potential environmental risk factors. Other environmental factors could also is including heavy metals, lead, manganese, and industrial chemicals, solvents, and pesticides contributes to the disease process. Another one is oxidative stress, meaning there is an imbalance between production of reactive oxygen species, or free radicals as we call it, and the body's ability to neutralize them with antioxidants. Oxidative stress can damage cells and contribute to the neurodegeneration, including loss of these cells that I'm talking about in the brain. Another one is mitochondrial dysfunction. So mitochondria, these are the cellular organelles responsible for creating energy for us, creating ATP, which is the power of our bodies. Dysfunction in these specific components, the mitochondria, includes lowered energy production and also more production of free radicals. And this is observed in later on. You see what the significance of this is as I explain therapies, and also contributes to a lot of brain damage and also cell death. Another one is the formation of a protein called alpha synuclein. And this is what we call now, as they aggregate, called Lewy bodies. And this is something that they will see in the pathology of brains of Parkinson's patients. And they aggregate to alter normal cell function and contribute to the dysfunction of that nerve. And then, of course, lastly, but there's more, but just to kind of narrow down everything, is inflammation. Chronic inflammation in the brain and the nervous system may contribute to the progression. Inflammation, because of the microglia, these are cells, immune cells in the brain, leading to the release of inflammatory enzymes that actually contribute to the damage. But I want to tell everybody that Parkinson's can also be a systemic inflammation. That's why I always want to address somebody has diabetes, high cholesterol, and all these other systemic conditions like autoimmune diseases. We definitely need to treat them as well in order for disease not to progress.
Okay, so you said the onset of this is more common in the after after the 60s, age 60 and older, but what are the symptoms?
Right. So, Steve, symptoms, you're going to see them. You're going to be really recognizing these patients once you see them. The one common symptom is tremor, shaking, one of the most well known symptoms. It starts with one hand or arm and may appear as a resting tremor, meaning it occurs when the affected limb is at rest. It shouldn't be moving when they're resting. The next one is called bradykinesia or slowness of movements. They call them like slow mo, is another hallmark. Movements are very sluggish, hard to initiate. It's actually the feeling of stiffness is there for the patient. Rigidity. So again, when I mentioned about stiffness, it's tight. They can't, they're resistant to movement. And this contributes to discomfort and disability to be mobile. And then postural instability refers to the impairment of balance and coordination. They fall and tip over a lot. That's why they're high risk for falls. And they have difficulty maintaining an upright posture. They experience also always, you'll see them hunched over and like stooped. And the gait also is weird, impaired, meaning shuffling steps, like little steps, reducing arm swing. They're not when you walk normally, they have little arm swings and they're hard to turn. So when they turn a corner, it's hard for them. And again, another high risk for falls. Freezing gait is where a person suddenly feels that their feet are glued to the ground. So this is very unique. You can ask these patients about it and making them uh, having a hard time stepping, especially on stairs and just initiating walking. And this can occur spontaneously, or it can be aggravated by stress or crowded environments. Another one is micrographia. So if you have somebody whom you know or you're suspecting Parkinson's, look at their handwriting, meaning it's called small, cramped up handwriting that may become pronounced as the disease progresses. That's why one of the assessment that we do in the clinic is we compare old handwriting to new handwriting of patients to see the differences. And another one that's very prominent are non motor symptoms. These are related to cognitive changes, memory loss, difficulty concentrating, mood disorders, depression and anxiety, sleep abnormalities, and constipation, urinary problems like autonomic dysfunction, as we call it, and sensory problems like alteration of smell. So there's so many, but I just narrowed down all the common ones for you.
Okay, so I would assume that, I mean, this seems like it's becoming more prominent um, in our culture. Um, I guess there's maybe specialists or people that, you know, conventional type treatments or they use medications or whatever. What are the common ways? And then I want to ask how maybe you may differ. But first, tell me what the common ways to treat this is. Common treatments for Parkinson's or ways to address it.
Well, Steve, if you go to your regular doctor first, this is the, let me just explain to everybody how it will be approached. And the thing here is anything that's conventional actually is only aiming to alleviate symptoms and improve quality of life and slow the disease progression. Right now, no cure. Okay, so that's why I want to emphasize later on that the cure will be prevention. But let me tell you what everybody needs to know. The most common medication is called levodopa. This is actually related to managing the motor symptoms of Parkinson's, which I just described, and it's converted into dopamine in the brain and helps replenish the low dopamine levels, improving the movement, such as the tremors, the rigidity, and the bradykinesia. Other ones would be dopamine agonists, meaning creating more dopamine for the brain to use. Other ones, antidepressants like MAO inhibitors, even anticholinergics, COMT inhibitors, amantadine, an antiviral, also had shown results. But again, no cure. Other ones would be physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. One that I actually have seen that actually helped my patients would be deep brain stimulation. So this involves implanting electrodes in specific areas of the brain. Then it delivers electrical impulses to modulate abnormal neuronal activity or brain activity. It can alleviate motor symptoms and improve quality of life in individuals with advanced Parkinson's disease who are not adequately controlled with the medication. That one I've seen, but again, not a cure.
So you're an integrative physician. Is there any unique approaches that may be different that you would take? And then, you kind of hinted that you want to talk about prevention, but uh,
Mhm.
where would you say some of the differences are with your clinic?
Right. So again, the cure for me is prevention. So this is probably the best way really everybody can start, even when people are not experiencing these symptoms, or if they have it in their gene pool. So they know that, I might have it in the future. So lifestyle, engaging in regular exercise, maintaining a balanced diet, getting adequate rest, managing stress can be difficult. But these are the things that Parkinson's patients, they need to improve so that they can have a better well-being. So that's a generalized recommendation, not only for them, but for anybody who has illness or no illness at all. But diet. So on studies, it has shown that a vegan, vegetarian, and dairy-free diet benefits Parkinson's patients. And also conditions found that the Parkinson's patients are actually high in meat and carbohydrates when they're eating their meals. So that's why we lower it down for these patients. Also, when you actually want to help your symptoms, coffee actually has been found that it has benefit. But I want to emphasize, get clean organic coffee, because when you don't get organic coffee, now you have the risk of exposing yourself to pesticides and herbicides, which actually are one of the possible causes of Parkinson's disease. Because they even found that the farmers, the people who lives in rural areas, actually are more prone to develop Parkinson's disease. Also, heavy metals. So avoid aluminum, pots and pans, or Teflon cookware, and also detoxify the liver. So that's something that we can do by eating sulfur-based vegetables such as garlic, onions, and also adding high fiber. So supplements. So this is also one of my fortes. So this is these are the things that I want my Parkinson's patients to have. EPA, DHA, omega threes. Okay, but when you think about omega threes, you're always going to think about, oh, fish oil. Not this time. This is actually more of plant-based alpha linoleic acid. So the studies had shown that plant-based omegas are better for Parkinson's patients and also improves their mood. Another one is glutathione. So glutathione, I just mentioned a while ago, these patients has very high pro-oxidative free radicals in the system. These patients, they have a defect that makes them create low glutathione levels. So a therapy that we do is giving IV for 30 days. And even on a study, this has been given that it improved disabilities and lowered the disease progression. Another one is CoQ10. CoQ10, these Parkinson's patients have been known to be deficient in such. So we give high doses. So we're not talking about when you're taking a statin, you need to take CoQ10 doses, or people who works out. We're really talking about high doses. That's why you need your provider to be guiding you through this. And with these high doses of CoQ10, symptomatic improvements has been seen. So now let's go to the non-supplement intervention. BHRT, hormone replacement therapy. Estrogen modulates dopamine in women. Neuroprotective after menopause. This is when the time for women, if they have it, this is when it peaks for them to have Parkinson's. So as you notice that when the hormones go down, the incidence for women goes higher. Another one would be low dose naltrexone. So not only Parkinson's, but also other neuroconditions such as ALS and MS. The concept here is to increase endorphins. And also, it's an anti-inflammatory, helps with fatigue, pain, spasms, and even depression. And also, for us in the clinic, we do detoxification. So I just mentioned to you about metals being a risk factor for Parkinson's. That's why we do chelation, IV style, or even orals through DMSA chelation. We also treat the gut. We promote liver detoxification, phase one and phase two. We like the infrared saunas and even hydrocolon therapies for that. And of course, supportive care, including counseling, support groups, and social services, can provide emotional support and practical assistance to Parkinson's patients and their caregivers. Because as I mentioned to you, it's a chronic condition. And not only is it hard to treat, but it's going to be challenging not only for the patient, but also for the people and loved ones around them. So that's why always remember prevention is the key.
Okay, you mentioned glutathione. So you do. I'm just curious because that's a treatment I do all the time. So my
Mm.
last question is, in this protocol for this, how often do you give them glutathione? Do they do it twice a week or once a week, or what's how many IVs of glutathione do you give them in a week or in a month, or how? What's your protocol?
So, Steve, that's a good question. I actually have a doctor colleague now who's experiencing Parkinson's symptoms, and we have placed them under this protocol. And the recommendation is actually very, very intensive 30 days straight of glutathione IVs. It was even recommended if they can do it twice in a day, that would be better. But the thing here is again how realistic that plan would be. But without those 30 days, it actually produces, so it's not the cure, but it actually produces better symptomatology for these patients and better relief. So again, how realistic would it be for the patient to do it? That's the bigger question.
Wow, that's a lot of glutathione. Are you
Hmm.
doing the max load like 2,000 milligrams every time?
Yeah, so depending on the profile of the patient, so that's why I was telling everybody that when you assess Parkinson's, you're not only focusing on the brain. You need to see if there's diabetes ongoing, if there's high cholesterol, if there's an autoimmune condition. So you would see the inflammatory pattern of the patient to determine how much they really need in their system. So it varies depending on their condition. But yes, and you're right, it's very taxing. But the doctor colleague of mine very adamant about it improving. That's why better color, better symptoms, and she's working that right now and still seeing patients. So that's a testimony that I have seen that it does work.
Well, everyone that watches the channel here knows that I love glutathione. So we had a subscriber ask for us, for me to ask you questions about Parkinson's. So we did that. If you guys have questions about this, about Parkinson's, that the doctor can answer for you, put them in the comment section. If you would like us to discuss other topics, other diseases, ailments, whatever it may be, put those in the comment section. That's how we got this one. And Doctor, thank you so much for your input on this, and thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you, Steve, for having me. As we all know, that our knowledge is your power to better health. And thank you for letting me provide you with the edge on longevity and health maintenance, which I call the biological edge or the bio edge.